boys and girls. Welcome to Curtin's Outdoor Paradise. I'm here today to read another story to you, Poolside. I love this book. It's one of my favorites. We haven't read it this year. I'm excited to share it with you. Oh, hi Kaylee. Hi. Can I have my hat, please? Ah, perfect. I'm missing something. Oh, Jordan, I need my glasses. Thanks. All right, let's start the book. Oh, thank you, Kaylee. We are going to be reading the book called The Raft. It's one of my all-time favorites, and it's the perfect book for this weather. So, grab a cold drink, slip into the pool, and let's read. Here we go. There's nobody to play with, I complained. She doesn't even have a TV. Dad grinned. Well, she's not your normal kind of grandma. Calls herself a river rat, he chuckled. But I promise she'll find plenty for you to do. And you know, I can't take you this summer, Nikki. There'll be no kids there, and I'll be spending all my time at the plant. I felt tears starting again, but I blinked hard and looked out the window. That afternoon, I stood in Grandma's yard and watched my dad drive away. Dust rose up behind our car as it disappeared into the pines. Well, we can't stand here all summer, said Grandma. Come on, Nikki, it's time for supper. Honey or maple syrup on your cornbread? Grandma asked. Personally, Miss Curtin likes to eat her cornbread and milk. I don't like cornbread, I mumbled, poking my finger into the syrup pitcher when she wasn't looking. If you're gonna do that, you'd better wash up first, she said. She had eyes in the back of her head. Bathrooms through there. I pushed the doorway curtain aside and walked into what would have been a living room in anyone else's house. Books were scattered everywhere. On the tables, chairs, even on the floor. Sounds like my kind of paradise. 3 of the walls were cluttered with sketches and stuffed fish and charts of a river. Several fishing poles hung from the 4th with a tackle box, a snorkel, and a mask on the floor beneath them. It looked like a river rat's workroom. All right, except that in the middle of everything was a half-finished carving of a bear. Been carving that old fella for years, Grandma called from the kitchen. The real one hangs out by the dump. Now, come get your supper before I feed you to it. Dad was right. Grandma found plenty for me to do. In the morning, I stacked firewood, then helped her clean out the rain gutters and change the spark plugs on her truck. The afternoon was almost over when she handed me a cane pole, a bobber, and some red worms. Fish fry tonight, she said, showing me how to bait the hook. That river's full of fat bluegills. Drop your line near the lily pads and you'll find them. Down on the dock, I looked over things, but lily pads were way too close to the shore. There couldn't be fish there. I walked to the end of the dock, threw out my line as far as it would go. I sat and waited and waited. My bobber never moved. There's no fish in this stupid river, I said out loud, disgusted. We'll have hamburgers for dinner. another try, said Grandma the next evening. I'll bet you catch something. Don't count on it, I thought. As I headed back to the dock, I threw my line in the water and stretched out on the dock to wait. I must have fallen asleep because I was wakened by loud chirping and chattering. I sat up and looked around. A flock of birds was moving towards me along the river, hovering over something floating in the water. It drifted downstream, closer and closer, until finally it bumped up against the dock. Though it was covered with leaves and branches, now I could tell it was an old raft. What was it doing floating down the river, all by itself, I wondered. I reached down and pushed some of the leaves aside. Beneath was a drawing of a rabbit. It looked like some kind of ancient cave painting I'd seen in books, just outlines, but wild and fast and free. I cleaned away more leaves, and it was like finding a present under a Christmas tree. A bear, a fox, a raccoon, all with that wild look of the rabbit, fast and wild and free. Who had drawn them, I wondered? Where had they come from? I ran up to the cottage. Grandma was on the porch reading. Do you have some rope I can use? I asked. In the shed, hon, she said. Help yourself. She didn't ask me what I needed it for, and I decided not to tell her yet. I pushed the raft into the reeds along the river's edge and tied it to the dock so it wouldn't drift away. All the wild birds flew over my head, every now and then swooping down to the raft as if it were a friend. A crane waded through the reeds to it. A turtle swam up from the bottom of the river. The moon had risen yellow on the river by that time. I went to the cottage to get ready for bed. I was already down the dock the next morning when Grandma appeared with a life jacket and a long pole. She didn't seem surprised by the raft at all, or by the animals' pictures all over it. How'd you know? I started. Let's go, Grandma interrupted, tossing me in the life jacket and stepping onto the raft. She pushed the pole hard into the river bottom, and we moved slowly into the current. Your turn, she said after a few minutes. She showed me how to hold the pole and push. I pulled us into the middle of the river. Even there, the water wasn't over my head. We pulled the raft up the river, then let it slowly drift back down. The birds kept us company the whole time, soaring and swooping and singing. Some even landed on the raft and rode with us for a while. Hitchhikers, Grandma called them. After that, I had little time for anything else but the raft. I raced through whatever chores were there, ran down the dock wondering what animals I'd see that day. It wasn't just birds the raft attracted. One morning, 3 raccoons followed me along the shore. Another time, a turtle climbed on board and spent the morning sunning itself. One after noon, I even saw a family of foxes slip through the trees along the river. When the weather turned too hot and sticky to sleep indoors, Grandma helped me put a small tent on the raft. I lay on top of the cool sheets and read comic books by flashlight until I fell asleep. One night, a noise woke me up. There, in the moonlight, stood a huge buck. He looked right at me, then lowered his head to drink as if I wasn't there at all. I found Grandma the next morning working on her bear carving. Do you have some extra paper I could draw on? I asked her. She brought out a big sketch pad and a pouch filled with thick pencils and crayons. I've been saving these just for you, she said. Better take these too. She held out a snorkel and a mask. Never know when they might come in handy on a raft. we're gonna stop there today, boys and girls, and we're gonna continue this story later on in the week. I hope you enjoyed this story today called The Raft, and I want you to think of what kind of fun adventure could you go on right around your house during these times when we're kind of stuck at home. I know that I am truly enjoying my outside paradise, even though I miss you and love you a whole bunch. See you soon.